evening and welcome to the March 23rd, 2022 School Committee meeting. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Over here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Flag was in a different place and it was very confusing.
I needed
for
that
all of
chuckle.
us. I'm so sorry.
Creatures of habit.
Wanted to make sure the public knew what was happening in here. All right. Our first item of business is a department report and update. We have the girls track team spring coach and our athletic director Mia Muzio. So come on and join us.
Hi everyone, obviously this is
Tilt that
too
down
tall
a
for
little
me.
bit. There you go.
Not surprising. I just want to say thank you for having us here tonight, as well as the girls and Coach Patron. I am going to just chat about the girls track program, indoor track program quickly about their team accolades, and then I'm gonna have each one of them come up individually and just introduce themselves and give us a little bit about their individual accolades for the season. Firstly, I just want to go through. This group was a 2022 Middlesex League undefeated champions for girls indoor track, and they had an immense amount of success, not just this past season, but all as individuals within their own individual events. Thank you. Yikes. I am truly proud. This is such a great group of kids, all their hard work and dedication. And beyond that, we have 5 Division I commitments to participate in either track or cross country. So just putting that out there as well. So I'm not sure they're going to tell you. So this season, this team went 5-0. They were undefeated in dual meets. They were the Middlesex League Freedom Division champions. 3rd place finish at the Middlesex League meet behind Burlington and Lexington. 2nd place finish at the Division IV state relays behind North Reading. And also the 2nd place division in the Division IV state meet behind Holliston. Just a few things to school records. Celia Coulis in the 55-meter hurdle. Sarah Levita in the shot put, and the shuttle dash relay, which was Allison Doherty, Maddie Mullis, Celia Coulis, Caitlin Doherty. So those are just 3 also just amazing things that happened this season with regards to school records. So I'm going to have each one of them come up individually, introduce themselves, and just give you a quick rundown of their individual accolades for the season.
Hi, I'm Olivia Erler. I'm a senior here. I committed to Merrimack to run Division I cross country and track. This season I broke 13 in the 2-mile. I was part of the 4x8 relay team for state relays that placed 2nd, we placed 6th overall, 2nd as a team. And then I was also part of the 4x8 relay team that placed 9th at states.
Hi, I'm Celia Coulis. I'm committed to run track and field at the Holy Cross next year, Division I. This year was fun. I broke the school record in the 55-meter hurdles a few times. I won the Middlesex League championships for 55-meter hurdles and Division IV championships for 55-meter hurdles. I came in 4th at the All-State meet and then 2nd at New England, and then just came in 3rd at the Nationals in the Rising Star event for 60-meter hurdles.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
I'm committed to run Division I track and field next year at Bryant University. I'm a 300-meter runner. I was 6th overall at the Middlesex League meet, and I was also 6th overall at the Division IV state meet. I was also part of the 4x4 relay team, which was 5th overall at the Division IV state meet, and we were 13th overall at the all-state meet. And I also got to compete at the Nike Indoor Nationals, Emerging Elite 400 and 200, where I didn't have my best races, but it was a cool experience to go.
Awesome. Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Angie Zaikovskaya. I'm a senior here. I committed to Merrimack to run Division I track and field. I'm more of a 600 runner. At the Middlesex League meet, I placed 8th overall. At the state meet, I placed 4th overall, setting up my best personal record. I was also part of the 6th place 4x8 relay team that placed 6th at state relays, and the 4x4 that placed 5th overall at the state meet too. That also placed 13th at all states.
Hi, I'm Isabel Puccio. I'm a shot put thrower, and I got injured this season, so I didn't get to do as much as the other girls. But I really tried to help my friend Sarah out with like her record. It was her first season, so seeing her grow was one of the best achievements for me this season.
Hi, I'm Shea Cushing. I'm a senior, and I'm committed to run Division I track and cross country at the University of Vermont. This season, I placed 4th at the Middlesex League meet, and then I placed 5th at the state meet, both in the 2 mile, and I ran my PR of 11:57 at the state meet, which marked my first time breaking 12. And then I was also part of the 6th place 4x8 team at state relays and the 9th place 4x8 team at states.
Thank you.
As everyone can see, there's also a wide array of success across the board, but also as a team, like I said, just a great group of individuals. They've done a wonderful job, and they are probably the most hardworking group of kids that I see every day. They are fully committed to everything that they do. So congratulations to all of them, and thank you to Coach Patron for all of his hard work, and I'm looking forward to see what everyone does this spring. So thank you.
Wonderful.
I'm sure there might be a couple of comments. You know, I could sing your praises all night long. We are in the presence of such greatness, and not just greatness athletically, but just greatness as human beings. And I'm just I feel so entitled to know you and to get to see your progress at those meets. And it really is just, if you've never been to a track meet, it is much more exciting than I ever could have imagined. So we are so proud of you. The town is so proud of you. And there are so many other things that they've achieved over the past couple of years. And it's really just amazing. I can't wait. Have those banners gone up yet? Not yet? We gotta get those banners up, but you have just, and I mean, as seniors, it must feel so good to know that you are leaving all of these things behind, and now you've strengthened this team to move forward. So we are just so proud, but I'll stop, because you know I could just go on. So, does anyone else want to say anything, have any comments or questions? Mrs. Burns?
So, I know it may not look like it. I used to do track, so in listening to your accomplishments, especially long distance, I could never do long distance. I'm a short power kind of gal, but it's just amazing. And just to echo Mrs. Bryson's words, you should be. And I think track is one of the most trickiest of all sports, because it's all individual performance, except for the relays. So to feel, which you do, that team mentality and that team support, that just carrying yourself up here, just to let us know what your accomplishments are. That teamwork and that collaboration is just so evident, and it's just so wonderful to feel. And I'm just so proud of you. I wish I could run again, but best of luck in your future endeavors. Show them what Wilmington can do in the next stage.
Congratulations. Thank you for coming in and letting us praise you, because it's exciting. And we want to make sure that we let everybody knows, right? I want to make sure we get this out, because it's a really exciting program. And Coach Patron, thank you for all you do to support them. And
I'm just glad we bought it.
I know.
Along for the ride.
We are so excited to see what this spring brings, and hopefully we'll see you back here after the season. So, do you want to say anything? Sorry.
No,
just taking over.
it's all right. Thank you so much for being here. You know, the opportunity to spotlight our students doing great things, representing our school, is something that I'm committed to trying to do more of. I know we have not had a chance to do a lot of that lately, and we want to showcase athletics, we want to showcase our performing arts, we want to showcase our students doing many other things too, and this is just a great opportunity for us. So thanks so much for all of your work. Look forward to seeing you out and around, again, representing proudly Wilmington High School.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we're gonna to continue our meeting. You are more than, okay.
Run out of here.
Want to see how
more
fast
than
they can
well, I
run?
know, like-
Now you'll see.
Thanks so much, I appreciate it. Congratulations.
Coming.
New school records. Fastest exit from the large group instruction.
They're like,
Even let you finish that
I'm like,
comment.
yeah, we're about to, yeah, they're like,
Couldn't
okay,
even
see you
get, like,
later.
a word
But
out
they
of
were
your
sitting so, and I was like, oh, they're just gonna stay, I'm just gonna continue on. I didn't want it to be awkward,
I was
but
hoping there was something like, oh, we have homework to do.
anyway. Oh, my goodness, so proud, so exciting, thank you. Our next item is public comment, Mr. Ragsdale.
We have no one signed up for public comment tonight, but we do have some people in the room. Would anyone like to make a public comment?
Thanks, Christine.
We, the committee, received one written public comment, which was distributed to us and we read before.
Thank you so much. Approval of items by consensus. We have approval of minutes, March 9th, 2022. Is there a motion? Mrs. Burns, seconded by Mr. Fennelly. All in favor? That's unanimous. We have acceptance of the Weft Miscellaneous Grants Award. Is there a motion? Mr. Ragsdale, is there a second? Mr. Samaha, all in favor? That is unanimous. I'm just trying to see, there were a couple of I didn't see a sheet with all of the, okay. I'm just looking to see. We don't have to read it out. I just wanted to, again, say thank you so much to WEF for their generous grant program.
I think they did.
There
say-
is, I'm just making sure that it's not,
For the 2 full write-ups that the teachers.
I'm sorry, 4,110 for the 2022. I just wanted to get the amount. All right, thank you. We have warrants G 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, R 26, 27, 28, L 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, FS 54, 55, and 56. Is there a motion? Mrs. Newhouse, seconded by Mrs. Burns. All in favor? That's unanimous. We have warrant CB 04. Mr. Fennelly, seconded by Mr. Samaha. All in favor? And there's one abstention. Payroll ending 3/16/2022. Mrs. Newhouse, seconded by Mrs. Plowman. All in favor? That's unanimous. And then we have warrants sped 29, 30, and 31. Mr. Samaha, seconded by Mrs. Plowman. All in favor? And that is one abstention. All right? Yes. All right. Our next item of business is the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. There are a number of items tonight that are under this report, and most of which have items that are included in the packet, and I'll go in order. First off, with the personnel report, just thought that it would be timely to bring to your attention sort of where we're at right now as it relates to planning for staffing for next year. At this juncture, it really all centers around retirements right now, and so thanks to Ms. Stern Armstrong, she provided the committee with an update on what that looks like. The good news is where we stand right now, there certainly does not appear to be near the level of retirements that we've had in recent years. This obviously could change over the course of the coming months, but these are the known retirements right now, and we are certainly well aware of these and putting into place steps to pursue replacements. Most specifically, of course, and timely are the administrative ones that you'll note there. So we will certainly endeavor to keep you informed of those as we go forward, but just to give you a sense of what we're looking at right now, still rather early, but certainly aware, and we'll be looking to explore, again, replacements as soon as we can. The next item, just a brief update on the North Principal search. As you know, this is the third administrative search that we've been busy with, and in the packet is a listing of both those members that are serving on the search committee. Again, as always, Ms. Stern Armstrong really works very hard and closely to coordinate and oversee these committees. They have been meeting and they have been active already. You can see the dates that she is hoping to adhere to in terms of this search. I know that they met yesterday to identify those individual candidates that they're planning to invite to interview, and you can see the other corresponding dates. So we're going to move forward with this in a similar fashion that we have with other searches, And of course, as part of this, that will include not only the interviews themselves, but also the chance for members of our community, the North community in particular, to meet candidates as they move forward. So we'll certainly keep you and, of course, most importantly, the North community informed. I'm sorry I'm not pausing. If there are any questions, though, just let me know. Okay, the next item is the Wildwood update, principal search update, and we've already shared this with you, but it's with great pleasure that we introduce to you this evening in our community Miss Kate Bizzle. So, Kate, you want to come forward if you would? And while she's doing so, in the packet is the announcement. We've shared this previously, but for those that are maybe tuning in, we're so fortunate and so excited to have Kate Bizzle join us as the next Wildwood principal. As noted in the memo, I'll just read this specific brief bio for her. She has over 15 years of public education experience, having served as a teacher and educational leader at the early childhood level, or early elementary level in the Amesbury Public Schools. During her time in Amesbury, she has served as a kindergarten teacher and more recently transitioning into the role of building coordinator, and a role that she's had for the last few years. She's had a wide array, as we came to learn when we had a chance to visit there in Amesbury, of responsibilities, including everything from overseeing schedules for both students and staff, as well as serving as a 504 coordinator, managing student discipline, MCAS, all of the things that certainly fall to the purview of a school principal. And so we're excited to have her join us. She will officially start in the role of Wildwood principal right after April vacation. I think that's April 25th, but in the weeks that are to come, we have, and still trying to solidify a plan for her to come and spend some time transitioning with Ms. McAdams, who's serving as the interim principal, as you know, right now. So we're really excited for her to join us. Welcome.
Welcome to the district.
Thank you. So nice of you to invite me to join you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to get started, and we've been in touch with a number of people throughout the district already, trying to connect with people in different roles, and like Glenn said, setting up some times to spend with Sheila McAdams and Kristen Walsh and et cetera to get my feet in the door and figure out how everything works before I am here for real.
Be able to visit the 3 remote campuses.
Yes, here I am at one, right? It's my first school visit.
We tell you, it comes with challenges, yeah.
You're already in one, that's right.
It will be quite an adventure for the spring, I'm sure, but I'm up for the challenge, so.
We're grateful for your willingness.
Yes. Grateful to have you.
If I may, not really to digress, but could you bring up the PowerPoint, the first one, if you wouldn't mind? So it's timely as it is with Kate being here, but today, as you know, is the first day of reopening for the Wildwood programs. And by all accounts, the move has gone very, very well. Thank you to folks in public buildings and Mr. George Hooper, who's worked very closely to provide literally the manpower to move everything. Staff had everything packed by the end of the day Friday. All of those contents were moved to the 3 host schools over the course of the weekend. In fact, I think it was all completed by Saturday. And the Wildwood teachers, absolutely a shout out to them. They have done an amazing job. And this is just a bit of a glimpse into these pictures we're taking today. So what we had here really was a day and a half for teachers to unpack all of their items that they took with them, set up their classrooms, and get ready, by the way, to welcome a walkthrough for many of the students, as I understand, who visited yesterday. And so these are just a couple of the images. And I can't tell you from all of the members of my team and those that have been helpful behind the scenes, what we saw today and over the last couple of days, truly incredible. These are some pictures from the high school. These classrooms completely transformed, and really students did not appear to miss a beat. They're excited to be in their new homes. They really are. We saw that today firsthand. Some pictures here of the high school and students arriving this morning.
You, while
Sure.
we're looking at these, how are staff adjusting with their needs and
So-
their schedule, recess, those things.
Yeah, so, thank you. You know, there's, undoubtedly, there will still be some things to work out here and there. But from everything from schedules to awareness of food allergies to health needs, there really has been an awful lot of work to coordinate all of this behind the scenes. And the staff, you know, they're ready. The support staff are well-positioned, walking through, for example, the Shawsheen yesterday and today, and stopping into food services. Not only were they excited for them to come, but as they assured me, they are ready and they're in the know about what they need to do. So, again, just want to share with the school committee and our Wildwood families that, you know, it's only day one, and we probably will have a few hiccups here and there, but by all accounts, things went very well. And again, a huge shout out to the Wildwood staff in particular.
From going to pre-K kindergarten right to the high school, bypass everything else.
I think we should shout out Kristen Walsh too, because she's left her position,
That's true.
you know, at a time when like maybe she was just feeling like she could take a breath again from COVID, and maybe not still, and is really stepping in and sort of helping out, and everybody is to be commended on
Absolutely.
this situation.
So, thank you for being here. We look forward to having you join us officially really soon. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Glad to have you.
Item 6D, the Student Opportunity Act Amendment Update. I'll turn it over to Ms. Elliott. This one.
In your packet this evening is a memo regarding the Student Opportunity Act, but just a quick recap for you. Back in February of 2020, before my time, just before my time, Dr. Regan presented information to you regarding Wilmington's plan related to the Student Opportunity Act. So I have linked the information here as a reference to you. The original intent of this 3-year plan was that each year districts would go in and make an amendment to that plan as needed. That was waived last year, given the circumstances with the pandemic. So this is actually the first year that we've been required to go into the grant and review it and make any amendments or changes as needed. Some districts, when this opportunity came around, received significant funding. You know, large sums more than they were accustomed to. We did not. It was pretty much business as usual. However, the state was required to document and submit information to the federal government around how these funds were being used. So that meant that even though we weren't really getting an increase in funding, or insignificant amount really, change from prior years, we needed to develop a plan. So we needed to develop identify a subgroup of students or an area of need that we would target. I believe that this was also shortly thereafter the Walker Report, which had recommended special education, more inclusion support in special education at the middle school. We wrote our plan, or the plan was written around hiring special education inclusion teacher for the middle school and some professional development to go along with that. So we don't see the need at this point to make any adjustments to that. So I have gone through and with the central office leadership team reviewed our plan, and our recommendation is to basically keep our amendment, we have to file the amendment, but to keep the same information. So it's due to the state, I think, April 1st. So part of the process is ensuring that we are communicating with the school committee around our recommendation to keep steady with our original plan. If I could take any questions.
Any other questions? Mrs. Plowman?
I did have a few questions about this, and I was happy. This is actually, I wasn't familiar with this until it was in our packet. I was happy to see that the middle school it was targeted towards the middle school and families. So I have some questions specifically related to family engagement. And my first question is related to the Advancing Parent Professional Leadership in Education, that program, APPLE. I didn't know what that was. I'd love to learn more about that. And are we participating in that currently?
I believe that was something that Christine Murray may have initiated.
We actually did with special ed. So Apple is, I forget the umbrella organization in the moment. Thank you so much. And that, prior to the pandemic, if I remember correctly, prior to the pandemic, we outreached to that organization with a specific intent to participate in that program. And it's really, having participated in that program myself in a previous district, it really is about strengthening or bolstering leadership, both amongst staff as well as families, in the overall special education process. I was sad truly to learn that that program was on pause for whatever reason prior to COVID, and most certainly there was no activity that we were aware of since COVID. So if that program opens up again for business, so to speak, it's certainly something that we'll look to partner and pursue.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So, and Joe, you may have answers for this too, but I had some questions just to understand family participation in CPAC right now. I know that attendance can vary, but do we have a sense of what kinds of things encourage families to participate or to attend? Is it just seem sort of random? How are we doing?
It's pretty random. It's usually a pretty low turnout. I know they actually have a meeting this Thursday, and they have someone from the ARC attending the first part of the meeting to let families know what different services are available and how they can help families. But yeah, it's pretty random. It's usually the same core 4 or 5 moms who are attending. Occasionally we get 1 or 2 visitors, but the beginning of the year when we were trying to invigorate the group, we had more, but then that quickly died off. It seems like a lot of the issues is people don't have the time to do a lot of the business work, and you're in it for how can I fix it for my child? And the business meetings really are not a place to do that. They had at one point had to follow open meeting law. Just this year, the AG's office came out with that most CPACs no longer have to follow the open meeting law because they're really more of a business unit. They're not making any district decisions or anything. I think they're sticking with the business model, because otherwise the meetings can get a little crazy and not be very productive. But they're still talking a lot of that out. Could I ask you to, and I know you've been very forthcoming with workshops. The discussion with workshops, how are they coming along? I know that there's 2 that are usually offered through the Federation, but are there any other workshops and expansion of that, or? I missed the last 2 meetings, unfortunately, but I know they held the basic rights workshop. I believe they're teaming up with, is it Reading or North Reading? I don't remember, to join in with their dyslexia workshop that's coming up. The ARC is coming in. I know they had somebody else lined up. So they've got them lined up. It's been slow moving, with the pandemic, with bringing people in, and actually the whole board were all brand new, so they were kind of learning their way. So hopefully next year you'll see a lot more. Thank you.
I do have a question. So I see this commitment form for engaging all families. And I had this, I'm remembering something from when we've done this in the past, where there was a need to engage families in the development of this, or something where the family, now, where is that happening? Like,
In the 3-year plan,
okay,
so we're coming up on that next year.
so we don't need to have this necessarily checked or seen by families.
I don't believe, because we're not even making an amendment to it
Yeah.
from our lens,
Mhm.
My understanding is that it's that 3-year cycle that we are, and if we were making a significant amendment, we would obviously seek out stakeholder input from the larger group, but
All right, because I do remember that being a part of it last time, and thinking about ways to do that authentically, because it felt a little bit like it wasn't being done in a way that was really gonna support the plan, so I was just curious to see where this one ended up.
I think it's timely, this is sort of timely right now, you know, and if the district decides to continue to focus on this subgroup for this. You know, I would be in support of, you know, continuing to focus on the middle school, just in terms of a lot of things that we've been talking about recently, and really wanting to try to engage the community or engage families more. I think this is a great opportunity, so when we sort of when it's time to do the rewrite of the plan, I think that it's timely in terms of continuing to focus some efforts on the middle school. It's a great opportunity, I think.
Questions or comments?
And not that I think, I certainly have to agree with you on that, Ms. Plowman, but the other aspect is that I think this really speaks to closing the gap overall, and how we do it across the grades for success. But the other aspect is, though, too, it doesn't seem that we're really benefiting monetarily to expand this, so whatever, what little we get and what other grants that we can find out there really kind of subsidize this plan. And I think that in itself is something that we should continue to invest in, even whether or not monies are earmarked for our plan in this. But I do think this is a roadmap, which I do see in many respects aligned with our, strategic plan overall. So that's just just wanted to add a comment.
if I can just add one more thing in response to your question. So as far as community outreach for an amendment, so because this is the first time we've done this, so they are asking, they do suggest that if there are changes that we get community feedback. However, they encouraged districts to refer to their ESSER 3 surveys that we sent out to all families, and had such a high, we had 866 responses. So they suggested using that data to help inform any decisions you would make. So just to add to that.
Great, thank you.
Tracy, could you pull up the next presentation? Moving on, 2 additional items in order. I'll move through those. First, a start time update, just to give a few reminders and just a refocus on this work, which does indeed continue, and my intention continues around trying to move this forward and bring this forth to the school committee, to the community for consideration. I do want to underscore that, for consideration of the possibilities of changing our school start times in the near future. Just a couple of updates here, and the chance to share an upcoming event. So first, we did create a new link off of the webpage, the district webpage, where we've compiled the recent presentations related to this topic of start times. We also included a video link there. We re-recorded that presentation, you might recall, back a little while ago, that was delivered to you, and that's available for anyone in the community who might be interested and not really sure about what this is all about. We also are really excited about partnering with the PAWS community group. Again, they have been terrific as such rich assets in thinking through how we can really message comprehensively and bring attention to different issues. You know, obviously that was seen most recently with the Wildwood Project, and they have graciously agreed to help with this. And so we have a community forum that's scheduled for next Wednesday, March the 30th, a week from tonight. That information, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that did go out, right, already to the community for the PAWS group. And so the town, virtual town hall, again, will be virtual. They really believe that this is a great way to leverage greater involvement than in-person meetings, and I would completely agree. And at that forum, there'll be a number of different presenters or folks that will be a part of this conversation. Myself, certainly our transportation coordinator, some of the members of the committee, the Start Time Committee, really with the hope to engage with our community members who are present around this really important topic and bring context to it. So there's a specific focus and email that went out, and we will send a reminder with the hope that we can get as many people as possible interested to attend that event on the 30th. The key dates, as I've acknowledged before, there's, this is one of certainly a number of different topics or different activities that are happening in the background. Nevertheless, the intention here is to do our very best to get a sense of the community around this issue. And what the proposal here is to engage with the PAWS group to really, again, leverage their thinking around structuring an instrument, for lack of a better way, a survey, to really gauge and gather feedback from our community around where they fall in terms of the possibilities of the change in start times, as people come to understand the implications, the possibilities. So the proposal right now is to, in a couple of weeks, just before April break, open up a survey for families, to let that sit out there for really almost 2 weeks, give or take, and then gather that data and bring it back to you as a committee, and present that at the end of April. What those findings are, what is the temperature, what's the read of the community as a whole on the possible scenarios and the interest in changing the start times, and then to come back to you on May the 11th. With a recommendation, and right now it's positioned as seeking your support, your vote. As I've said before, this is best laid plans, and certainly to acknowledge that the feedback may point in one direction, or maybe it doesn't, and maybe it will be collectively necessarily concluded that more time is needed. And at the outset of a restart for this project, I certainly, you recall, I stressed that we're going to do our very best, because I remain committed to and think that this is important work, an important consideration for our community, but to acknowledge that our community may need more time and the opportunity to better understand what's at play here. And if that's the case, then that's the case, and maybe it needs more time into next school year. If, on the other hand, there's a clear sense that our community is on board and willing and very much desires a change in start times, then with this timeline, it still remains very possible from a structural standpoint or a bus scheduling standpoint that we could pursue changes for the fall. I've asked that question a number of times of Lisa, and she's assured me that absolutely. She said even towards the end of school, if you were to say we're going to change, she could make it happen. So that's the timeline right now, and I just wanted to give the opportunity to give you an update on where that's at. And I'll pause there if there are any questions.
Questions, comments? We're all politely waiting for one another. No, I'm thinking of a number from 1 to 10. I'm kidding. Jay?
Not really a question, but just a comment that I'm glad to see this on the agenda, the dates laid out very clearly, and your willingness and openness, sort of saying if the community is behind this, we can move forward quickly. If the community is not on board with this, then we'll slow it down. I supported a start time change, but doing it in a smart way. So I appreciate the way it's being done.
So from the first presentation that we received a bit ago, am I thinking thinking correctly, there were 11 scenarios that got whittled down to, where are we at?
Or 5 right now.
I just want to sort of understand, like, we're not gonna go back to the drawing board, like, our, people's sort of thinking has to be based around these 5 scenarios?
Yeah, great question and an important one. So at this point in time, what this is it is centered around 5 scenarios that don't include any expansion of our bus services or a change to our busing policy. So I think that that's an important point to note, that we are not, this is not, any kind of change is not contingent upon adding 4 more buses, let's say, which obviously has a fiscal resources, or is not contingent upon changing our policy so that we only, let's say, have user fees or so on. It is keeping the status quo, creating scenarios around the opportunity for any student in our district to still take the bus, and these scenarios are shaped around that. There indeed are other possibilities and other scenarios out there that include the expansion of our fleet and adding more buses to our services. But in this first pass, if you will, I'm not sure that's the best term for it, but it was thought that that would just get to be too complicated or to be that much more to consider. And for right now, I guess ultimately it was my thought to leave those off to the side. I would say, though, that if there is, when we get this survey and the feedback, if we can't get a clear sense of sort of our community wrapping around one of the possible scenarios, opening it back up for more time and going into next year, I would suggest we should probably add into the mix then those possibilities. Maybe a reconsideration of our policy, maybe the expansion of bus services. We could certainly do those into the fall, but that's where we're at right now.
So we've been trying to do this for a long time, and I think that we should have a stronger intention to get this done this year. Now, if there's an utter rejection or we find a real problem in some really substantial reason why we can't make this happen, all right, then that's one thing, and we can potentially, I suppose, put it off. But I think I would want to see some real good reasons for us not to try to pursue this. Like, to me, this is not kind of just like we have a scale, and if it, weighs a little bit to this side, we'll wait. If it weighs a little to this side, we'll go forward and do it. I need to see just like an anchor weight on the other side for us not to go forward and pursue this, because it's not really going to be different next year. The options are still more or less going to be, I think, the options in front of us. And, we've arranged our lives around the schedule that we have now. So everything seems a little bit more convenient than any of these other options. Everyone's going to look at these options and not like them. It's like, I just want to let anyone watching know that you're not going to look at these options here and just be like, wow, that would just solve everything. And this one is amazing. It has no trade-offs. And suddenly everything is easy for everyone, because none of them are going to be like that. But we know that the trade-offs we're making right now, we don't like and we don't want and we shouldn't continue. And so, we need to make, I think we need to make this change unless we have a very good, strong reason not to, and that should be the way we're approaching this, rather than, again, it's like, you can't predict the future. We have to see, what's possible. And MJ's dying to jump in here, so I'll shut up and let you respond.
No, forgive me. No, I didn't mean to. My apologies. My impulsivity gets the better of me. I do have a question that may speak to that. With regards to our current configuration with our Wildwood students across different schools, how would this potentially impact the plan going forward? Do they currently come later than high school students at this time, or? I'm just trying to get a better idea and recollection as to what those routes will look like, and the back and forth kind of situation to the, if we have to stay where we are,
Sure.
I just wanted to kind of get that battle plan.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile to note that what Lisa has been able to do with the routing. So first off, we have the reality that we have the pre-K and K, and pre-K is served, there's not bus transportation for that, as I'm sure you're aware. So we're really talking about a small number of kids, and what Lisa has been able to do with the routing. I want to clarify, there's been no impact on the other transportation routes or times for the rest of the district. I can't tell you exactly how she's made that happen, but she has, and so there would be, we could make these adjustments without implications.
Okay.
Next year, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, no, that's correct. I mean, one thing, there was some minivan changes we got to do, incorporate as well for some of the special ed
Programming?
pre-K and so forth.
Okay.
So Elise was able to do that as well.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Can I just jump in and say that I know Pause has been, as they are preparing to do this event, they're really being thoughtful about how they're presenting it, and so I think there have been some things that have gone back and forth. I've kind of I'm not going to be on that panel. I think they've asked you to be on that panel.
Yep.
As a representative from, obviously, our committee, but also because he was on the original school start time committee. But I would just say, I'm not sure where that all landed, but if there were any change, just make sure that the committee gets notification or something like that. So I want to make sure they see the presentation prior to the event. So nothing should be a surprise when we're sitting there going, oh, I didn't realize that was happening. So they've been just incredible to really try and tighten things up around what will this sound like to families, and then they bring such a perspective that I think as school committee members, we don't know, but we lose sight because we are so in the weeds, and they've been so helpful in helping us to, they'll be like, well, what do you mean by that? I'm like, oh, I guess I hadn't thought about it that way. And so I think it's been really beneficial for us to have them working alongside, but I also want to make sure that the committee is well aware of any of those discussions. So even in just your weekly update, sharing with them something that may have transpired. So, and I don't have any more information. I don't have any more information to share other than I just want to make sure you're up to date on those sorts of things. And to say thank you to them. They are very organized and very thoughtful about this work, and they want it to be very clean and comprehensive, but also cohesive and simple. And I think that's just so great that they're willing to do this, sort of as well as we all do as volunteers, and just trying to help make this a better thing. So I agree with David. I like to move things a little quickly, so I would be very happy to try and, if the community supports this, to move forward on this. We actually literally just moved an entire school building into 3 buildings in a matter of a couple of weeks. So the fact that we could do something like that, and kids were smiling and happy today and transported properly, and all, that we could do that in such a short time, and that this has been coming up to us for years now, seems a little bit funny to me. I'm like, okay, if we can do that, pretty sure we can do this. So I would encourage the community to understand this and get behind it, so that feel like they're a part of the process, and not that all of a sudden, come June, July, they're like, what? What's happening? How did this happen? So I think we're in a good position to help move this forward. Mrs. Plowman?
It says get answers to parents' pre-submitted questions. Was that in the email? Was there a link for parents to do that? Yes? Okay.
Right below the, it's not Zoom, she's doing it through Harvard, but right below the actual virtual meeting link.
Great. So people should check your email, look for that email. There's a link there to submit any questions ahead of time.
Went out this morning at like 7:30.
Yes. Thank you.
Also has the hyperlink for it, and they're going to prioritize the pre-submitted questions.
Excellent. Thank you.
And that invitation's also on the website?
Correct.
Yeah. Love these
Flyer.
answers. Tracy, you are on it.
We love Tracy.
All right.
Okay, and move
we
on.
good? Okay.
Last item, middle school program review, unrelated to the start times, but just to also give you an update as a committee on where things are at. There's been a lot of activity behind the scenes of recent note, so just a chance to bring you up to speed on this. And again, just as context, as a reminder, this is one of the goals that I proposed previously around similar to the high school, in terms of really taking a 360-degree sort of review of where we're at, take a look at our middle school program in comparison to other school districts, and collectively from that, help me make recommendations, ultimately to you as a committee around some changes that we may wish to consider there going forward. So first off, you know that fairly recently we partnered with the AMLE, or Association for Middle Level Education. That they had a terrific and vetted and research-based survey that they have used in many middle schools throughout the country and actually internationally. That survey, you might recall, went out to families, to students, and to staff, and that was sent out the end of January. Since that closed, AMLE has been a great partner in pulling together and working with us and pulling together all of the research. It really is an incredibly in-depth survey. It is a report of almost 100 pages, and really some terrific data analysis, but also analysis from a qualitative standpoint in interpreting the data. The findings of that survey were shared with staff today, and both Ms. Elliott and I attended that meeting, and actually someone from AMLE who closely worked on this survey presented the findings. The plan is to share the full survey results with our entire community and you as a committee in the next short window of time here. We are planning, and this invitation has not gone out yet to parents and guardians, but will tomorrow, or if not by Friday. Tuesday, April 5th, I've checked, it doesn't appear that there are any other district events planned for that evening, and so the intention is to hold and invite anyone really who's welcome to come, but obviously we'll target the middle school families to hear the results of the survey, and that full report will be made public. And then on April 6th, that is our next scheduled meeting here as a committee to share that report with you, provide those updates, and also to give you a preliminary sense of some of the work that's been happening related to the program review. These are sort of two different aspects, but they will converge as we go forward in terms of possible recommendations. So that, a fairly big development. Just shifting to the specific program review, and that's what was obviously central to my goal. Work started in January with the middle school staff working on gathering information around other districts, schedules, programs of studies, and the like. And so that work in the background's continuing. So I'll give the committee a preliminary sense of what that data collection looks like, what was sort of found from a comparative standpoint with other school districts, again, on April 6th. My plan right now is at the end of May to provide you with a report and recommendations. And I believe, if I remember correctly, that is the original timeline that I shared, I think, at the beginning of the year. Principal entry plan is another aspect of all of this work, and again, obviously this is all related, but sort of some different tracks here, the AMLE survey, the program review, and then coupled with all of that, just to give you a brief update on Dr. Quirk's entry plan work, she has been active in terms of surveying, as I understand from her staff and families. She is in the process of, or may have these now set up, focus groups with both high school students, and specifically she's thinking about trying to target students, either juniors or seniors, those that have the chance to go through the middle school during normal times, and I think that's wise, also with the advantage of maturity and so on. And she's also scheduling, or will be scheduling, focus groups with middle school students. I talked with her about also partnering or pairing on that date of April 5th when the middle level education survey results are going to be shared, so as not to ask middle school parents to have to come out to another evening or attend another separate meeting. The thought is to pair the two on that same evening. So the plan on April 5th is to have two parts. One, to share with anyone who's willing to come out that middle level survey, and then two, the chance for Dr. Quirk to have another opportunity to gather information from those in attendance, sort of a SWOT analysis, if you will, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, that kind of information gathering. The plan is for that to culminate with her report to the committee here also on May 25th. And so, I think that's the last slide, yeah. So that's the activity that is happening in the background related to the middle school program review. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to take any.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Mrs. Palmer?
Just to clarify, April 5th. So
Yes,
this will, the survey results from AMLE
yes,
will also be virtual? So the
Yes.
whole evening will be
Yes,
virtual?
correct. Thank
It will
you.
start with the survey results
That's
from
right.
AMLE?
Yep.
And it will conclude with an opportunity for
Yes.
parents and caregivers to give, participate in the
That's right.
SWOT analysis?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
The second part of it kind of makes me rethink what I was going to say, but I'll say it anyway. I wondered if an invitation to the current fifth grade.
For that evening, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know, it,
Because they won't be able to really participate in, unless they've had other children recently go through, but
yeah, I mean, again, I would say this because it's virtual, although there may be is there a limit on our professional Zoom license? 300, okay. So, but, you know, it's virtual, it'd be open to everyone, but I think the target would be, so it's a good point. The target invitation, I would think, would be naturally to the middle school, but also high school parent, you know, we invited them to take the survey as well, too. So that invitation would go to them as well. I think that's only fair, that if they're interested to see the results, then that will go out. So I think we'll have enough space, I'm hopeful, in the Zoom link to accommodate that. So certainly, we can think about extending an invitation to fifth grade parents, too.
I have two thoughts. Can I go? Can I go? I have two thoughts. One, so I understand the need or the want for virtual, and I'm sure that we'll have more people participate, but I'm still a little hesitant. I just feel like in-person can be just a better format, especially when you're asking for feedback like strengths, weaknesses, so I'm a little worried. I'm just wondering if there weren't a way to do both. But if not, if that is a no, because we'll definitely have more people at the virtual forum, it may be a way to partner with that pause group to have them take some, we've only been to that one forum, but it also helps to have other people facilitating, and so that maybe it could be broken and there could be breakout room. I mean, I'm sure that was gonna be part of it anyway, but to have, just to partner, partnership means you're partnering, so you're inviting the parents, but if we're really hoping to start these partnerships, then we're actually co-planning some of this stuff, and if we have this very active parent group who is also very capable of doing some of this stuff, I'm just wondering if that would be something. Of course, it's late now, it's April 5th, and so I'm not sure that they would be able to add that to their list, but I would at least reach out and see if they could participate in any way.
I think it's a great idea, Jen.
It's not
because-
so administration heavy, like everyone's, I don't know if you'll get the same, I don't know.
Well, I think about is it okay if I comment on your comment? Yes, you may comment. Thank you. So, I always think about participation, so parent engagement and connection. I feel like those are two important key things that are needed. And I'm just trying to think about how this is an opportunity to really highlight those aspects, right? So the virtual on the one hand might increase participation and showing up, right? Because that's historically been very problematic at the middle school. It's just showing up. And then it's like, but then the virtual sort of takes away that connection opportunity too. So but I like how you're thinking in terms of incorporating pause to maybe sort of bridge those two things.
And as we know, they get a lot more people at these events than we do. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but when parents are pushing their friends and their colleagues and you're just gonna, and then other families know, oh, I know you're gonna be there, so I feel safe to go there. I mean, I just think that cannot be underestimated, the value of that, when you see it come from an administrator, I mean, less likely to get that kind of support. So I don't know if it's too late, but I would definitely recommend having Dr. Quirk reach out to them and.
Clearly, you know, and again, the opportunity they're very skilled, again, to applaud the skill and the knowledge that the PAWS group has collectively and individually that they bring to it is really wonderful. I was, you know, they all, I think, have brought in elements of their professional lives and their own experiences, and it was really, yeah, it was quite amazing to see how they approached the virtual forum for the Wildwood Project.
Yeah.
So I think we can certainly leverage those ideas and even if not an outright partnership per se, but certainly leverage those ideas to make it an enriching experience. But, okay.
Other questions, comments? And so I'm not sure if oh yeah, sorry, nothing. I was gonna ask when we were gonna see the entry plan, and then there it is, right in front of me, so I'm good. Okay. I'm gonna stop for a second, because David we located the details on the Weft Grants, and so we were going, you have that handy or no?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So before we move on to new business, I just wanted to go back and briefly describe the Wef Grants, because both the people who apply for them and Wef itself spends a lot of time thinking about and doing the actual applications and reading them. And of course, the people who contribute to Wef, where this money comes from, would probably like to know where it's going. So the first grant is going to supplement, so the district and the Shawshene School received a Safe and Supportive Schools grant, which has largely at this point been spent down, but with what's left from the Safe and Supportive Schools grant, supplemented by this WEF grant, is going to allow the Shawshene to bring a speaker to the school to talk to students. So that is, with those two combined, are going to help them bring a speaker to the school. The second grant is to 3 teachers at the middle school, Rossi, Kristen Forsina, and Crystal O'Keefe, who are going to attend a course in UDL, Universal Design for Learning, at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and then bring what they learn back into the district to then work with other teachers and further pursue. We already have sent teachers for this kind of training, so this is a more advanced training for these teachers who will then kind of come back and spread that more thoroughly throughout the school. So thanks to them for applying and for going forward with this program, and thanks to WEF for funding those projects.
Thank you very much. You're up next.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Yes.
Tracy, if you could bring up the school
So
choice.
we're moving into new business.
Thank you.
Just checking my timestamp, sorry, no, I'm
Right on
kidding.
the mark. Almost.
School choice for now. School choice overview and
Okay.
presentation. Go ahead.
Thank you, sure. So to start, there are a number of items that are in the packet that to go along with this item of school choice. A more expanded array, I guess, of supporting documents to help that we've shared previously. But clearly, it seems to be a very important topic, a timely topic to consider, and so the thought is to provide more context for school choice than we've done, at least in my time here in the district. In the packet, for anyone who's interested, the documents that we've compiled and included all come from the Department of Education. There is an advisory on school choice. And just to start out with and to be clear, what school choice really is about, for those that are not familiar with this, at its elementary or fundamental level, is a public school district allowing students from other towns to enroll and attend school in the district. There's a frequently asked questions document from the Department of Education on school choice. There is an overview of school choice and the status of districts throughout the Commonwealth, another document directly from the Department of Education. And there's also relevant Mass General laws that are an important framework for school choice. So not to try and overwhelm anyone with all of this information, but it's there if anyone's interested. The presentation that I'm going to go through is just meant tonight to be informational, provide the committee with considerations around this topic. We're not seeking any action by you this evening, but what you are required to do annually is to make a decision on school choice. That you have done previously, and so I think that that's important to point out on an annual basis, and usually it's around this time. I'll go through the slides here. These were included in the previous packet. You'll recall that we passed over it. I modified the title slide. I do apologize. The very last slide I noticed has the same date of seeking you to take a vote, which is tonight, so we'll get to that though in a moment. So there is context, again, under Mass General Law for school choice, and they more specifically refer to it as inter-district school choice. So again, this law really establishes the means of which a student who lives in one town could attend school in another town or another school district. And that's really at the heart of what this is. The Department of Education updated an advisory a couple of years ago on school choice for school committees, for school administration, for communities to consider. And I think that the last bullet is really an important one. The presumption on the part of the Department of Education is that all school districts will participate in school choice. In other words, it's presumed that districts will allow anyone from any town to attend school in that district, unless the school committee takes specific action. Now, I'll note that it says a public hearing in the language there. To my knowledge, we as a district haven't actually formalized a hearing in the way that we do for the budget hearing. But I have to be honest, from experiences in other districts, I've never experienced a more formal hearing or the publication of a hearing. That's not to say that some districts don't do that. They might. It's an item on the agenda, so it's public. But in terms of, putting notices in, let's say, local newspapers or media outlets, bringing attention to a hearing, I don't think that that's something that, I know that not all districts do that.
I read that, and I thought it pertained to if a school committee was going from school choice to no longer school choice, that a public hearing had to take place. But if we, as we've done in the past, like maintain the course, there was no reason for that, along with the time elements as to when, this, the June 1st deadline with regards to when that could be done.
That may be correct. I will admit to you, I'm not certain on that.
No, I just thought it was unique.
So just moving on to the slides here quickly, there's, as pointed out, there's an awful lot actually of information as I came to learn as I explored this further that is available. Most of it, not all, but a lot of it we've included here, as I mentioned before. But I think that the really important thing to think about, and especially given obviously a lot of the conversation as of late for our district, and arguably I'm sure many other districts, is, well, why not just why not open up the doors, so to speak? Why not allow students from other communities to join? There are some important things to consider, and this holds true for any school district when contemplating, which direction to go with choice. Really, the last bullet there, I think, draws attention to those things, not necessarily in any particular order. What's the capacity that a school district has in order to accommodate students? That may be based upon grade levels. That may be based specifically on levels. There's certainly those factors that are important to consider. There are financial factors, most certainly as well too, and that would include or could include out of district transportation, special education services, and the like. The next few slides just grab a sampling of the frequently asked questions that I will admit I selected, but only in the sense of trying to provide some context as you as a committee think about this. And so the first there, may a school committee vote to specify into which schools, grades, and programs it will admit students? The answer is yes. If you take a look at the document that we included that provides a status overview of where districts are in this, Those that are participating in school choice, you might have seen there, some may be all grades. You'll certainly see districts that will target a specific grade level, grade 9, for example. It's something that a school committee can certainly do. The second question, how should districts that participate in school choice inform potential applicants of the application process? Certainly that can be done through a variety of means, and bringing attention to the fact that as a school community, you are inviting people to apply to be enrolled in the school choice program. Must a school district use a random selection process? There's very specific language around this that the statute supports and the DESE really expects districts to follow. And first and foremost, I think what you see there, it's random. In other words, in my understanding of this, and certainly I'll acknowledge that I don't know all of the ins and outs of the law here necessarily, but what I will say is from the random selection process, what I do know is this: if hypothetically a district opens up 50 seats at the 9th grade, just using that as an example, a district would have to create an application process, and it should be a random selection. So if 100 students apply, randomly you need to select 50. It would be improper, and you cannot, as a district, select the students that you're admitting. So I think that's an important piece. There's an aspect of siblings and sibling preference there, the second question. And certainly consideration can be given if you're a district that's participating. And then the third question there, again, in the form of FAQs, may a receiving district rescind an offer of admission based upon a student's disciplinary record? The answer is very clear, no. So if you think back a moment to the random selection process, there is not the ability of a district to profile or preview students applying. In other words, it is not possible to see a discipline record. It's not possible to see any other status requiring that the student's needs might be, special education or other. That's impossible to do. So as it relates to discipline, that is to say, if you are a participating district and you invite in 50 students, it's certainly possible that in that complement, some students can be coming with discipline of all sorts, of any sort, or no prior discipline. Must a student admitted under school choice reapply for admission in subsequent years? No. So once the child is admitted, they're in through until graduation, if they wish to be. Must a school choice district admit students with disabilities who may require out-of-district placements? The answer is yes. Must a school choice district provide transportation to non-resident students? Students participating in the school choice program do not receive transportation services unless those services are included in the student's IEP. So it's certainly possible that the district would, if receiving students that require transportation, have to provide that. So things to consider, and there's a lot more frequently asked questions, by the way, if you took a moment to take a look. But again, those were intended to be just a sampling. So I think it's really important to point out that a school district that is opening up for school choice is responsible for all special education programming. There's no question about that. That also includes out-of-district placements. So if a child is admitted into the choice program and they may not be in an out-of-district placement, but over the course of their time in the district, it's deemed that's deemed the course to pursue, then certainly the district would have to financially support that. A district cannot accept or reject a student due to their disability status. And once, the third bullet, once we allow school choice, a district can change back. So they can they can open up for school choice, if you will, and then decide subsequently to revert back and close off school choice. But once the students who were invited into the choice, well, the window is open, so to speak, they, as mentioned earlier, are they're obligated. We have an obligation, rather, to keep students through until graduation. And the final point, not necessarily something that's written in any DESI guidance or advisory, but just, I think, something to consider, that sometimes there are reasons why students may be opting to go to another school setting. So what are the next steps with all of this? Again, as a school committee, annually, the administration has asked you to make a decision on whether or not to participate in the school choice program. That has been done, from all accounts, annually, sorry. The only date in which that has to be done by is by July 1st. So it's quite possible that if one was to take a look back at previous years, as a committee, the sitting committee may have taken this vote at different time periods. But it all generally is, I think, around the spring. Okay, thanks. So.
I think it's June 1st.
June
not
1st.
July
Yeah.
1st.
I believe it's June.
You've said June in other slides.
Okay,
I think
so-
it is June.
My apologies. We'll
No,
say
no
June.
worries.
That's okay.
And again, so the intention here, this is all meant to be informational, and again, the correction there that should be, or could be the next date. But I point all of that out to say it's not necessary for you to take a vote at the next meeting, April 6th, but at some point before, I stand corrected, June 1st, not July 1st. And so that's it for the slides, and happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Mrs. Burns?
So I want to thank you for the corresponding information associated with this piece. It was very helpful. Although we've had school choice, and I had a great overview, I didn't realize it got into so many details. So I do appreciate that, just to expand in my understanding of the aspects.
Mine as well, I will add.
We've never have done school choice that I'm familiar with. I'm aware of in any aspects. I did want to say, comment that in looking over the districts that do participate, that there's a lot more than previous years, and those who have opened themselves to school choice historically, I've seen some growth in the grades where it was so similar. So that was interesting to see, very much so. With regards to I think it was the year before, or 2 years before, something to that effect. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I was just a little curious. There's two questions, one of which, I don't know, Paul, if you can answer this, and my apologies, is the special education component. There was an aspect in that information with regards to that if a child goes to school choice and does require additional services, that it's incrementally calculated per the same formula that they do the circuit breaker, which we all know is only funded 65-75%. So I don't know, I've never heard of that before, so I was a little intrigued what that aspect looks like, or if you're aware of it. I know it's a bit of one of the dark.
I'm not familiar with the school choice. I know that districts, I believe, get reimbursed for 75% up to maximum 5,000 for gen ed students.
Right.
And I think someplace it said that any special education students, there's a little more funding available. I'm not sure what that is.
No worries, thank you. I was just thought that was a little intriguing. And the other thing is, and I don't want to put you on the spot because I'm not looking for a black and white answer, but considering our outlook as we currently are with the configuration of the Wildwood in these spaces, maybe I should preface it by saying I think that would be something, a part of the conversation when it does come before the board again for a vote. Your recommendation as it pertains to space currently with the way we're housed, and I don't know if we'll have a better outlook or plan come the end of this year or beginning of next year, as well as if it is something that you would support or you would have us consider, then as I assume you will do, where you're looking for possibly growing numbers, if that is in fact the decision. Those are just the two items I wanted to contribute. Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Smaha?
Yeah, I'll add, I mean, I think the biggest issue with deciding whether or not we want to do the school choice is when you look at the enrollment numbers, we all are aware that the overall enrollment is going down in Wilmington, and this would be one way to increase enrollment. But at the same time, it's also acknowledged that our own special education costs are increasing, and if we were to take on students who are from another district with special education needs, that cost could then go up, and it might not be to our benefit, in the long run. So I think it's a very difficult decision, I think, that we have, because it's this trade-off of, do we, we want to increase enrollment, but we also don't want to, increase special education costs. And part of it is it's very true. If a family chooses to put their student in school choice, they probably have some, there's something going on in their home district where they might not want to send it. It might not be, I just don't like the reputation of the school. It might be, they had some, issue with special education in that district, and they might want to move to a different district to see if there's a different, a different outcome there. So I think there's a lot of these things that are going on, and I think it's a very, important definition, and we can't predict the future either. So, whatever we decide, I think we have to understand, and I think the public needs to understand too, that if it's, it's not like here's an easy way to increase enrollment. Could be that, or it could be this other risk where we incur these large costs. And looking at this, MJ, I know you brought it up about the Chapter 70, how they're funding it, and I don't claim to understand the wording here in the law about how it's reimbursed minus the other additional funds. I'm not going to even go there with that. So it's a big decision. The other thing that I want to bring up too, in addition to that, is this idea of a hearing. And I know I don't remember that ever really happening in the past, other than the fact that we're doing it in a public meeting. But if you look at the DESE's advisory on the law, it does state that, so basically every year we have to opt out of this, right? That's the idea. So it says, if you want to choose to opt out, the hearing and the school committee's vote can occur at the same meeting. It may occur on a scheduled school committee meeting, provided there is notice to the public that this item will be discussed and that the members of the public are afforded an opportunity to participate and make their positions known to the school committee prior to the vote. So I think my suggestion would be that we pursue that to see what, what does the community think about this? Instead of us just making a decision based on what we think, we need to really incorporate them into it, and that's kind of what DESE is saying as well. So I think that maybe we should be changing how we do this, and I'm not exactly sure how that would exactly work, but that is what DESE's, that's their, whatever it's called.
But that would,
their advisory. Go ahead.
that could be public comments. That could be contributed to public comments. Public hearing is, it's a more, you have to exit out of public meeting to go into a public hearing.
I agree with you. I'm just saying,
I mean,
they're calling it a hearing in here, so I don't know if does that mean the same thing as, oh, it's an agenda item
Hearing is different.
that, I could do somebody could do public comment for. So I think that we need to just be aware of that.
Thank you.
I agree. I think that, I hadn't read it like that prior to this particular packet, and sort of made me look back and say, well, my goodness, we have not even gotten this much information on this before. I mean, I think the first time I came to my first school committee meeting, it was like, what are we doing? What's happening? Why aren't we doing it? Like, it was a very quick, not much discussion. It was a recommendation, and that was how we moved forward. And so the fact that we haven't been adhering to this for all these years, I think is very problematic. We certainly can't say to the public, it was on our agenda, you could have made a comment. I don't think that's appropriate, because there was absolutely nothing really circulated. Obviously this was. I mean, sure, we could say it was out there, but this is not a hearing. And I would guarantee you, families do not know that they don't know enough about this and they haven't been thinking and talking about it, so it really hasn't been well circulated. So I think that I would agree with you that we probably need to do this the proper way. Melissa?
On the flip side of that, I get concerned about sometimes the linear ways of thinking when people are not as immersed in a lot of the school-related issues in the town. So like you were saying, I think a lot of people, for example, would look at our enrollment numbers and it would be like, oh, easy. Like, this is how we rectify that. I think we would have to really disseminate a lot of other information for people to really think comprehensively about the implications on the district around that, and think about, all of the other, essentially like balls that are juggling right now in the district and things that are going on, and sort of the MSBA project and, moving of the Wildwood School, and just in terms of building space and capacity. Something that has been crossing my mind thinking about this is, and a few people have talked about this in the community, is all of the upcoming housing developments in this town. We have to really think about, everybody's worried, like, where are we gonna put all those kids? Well, we're okay right now, right, with enrollment, but once you accept a child through school choice, that child has a spot here now. So we have to have lots of forward-thinking ability, and obviously want, community involvement in that, but I would just really hope that community members who choose to participate in that are well-educated around the goings-on of the school district.
I think it's important to note too that you can also select the grade that, you wouldn't, if you school choice, it doesn't mean you accept
Correct.
K to 12.
Well, let me just clarify that this would still be our vote. We wouldn't,
Right,
there would be a hearing, and we would be listening and taking all of
Right.
those ideas in, but ultimately, is that correct? Right?
Yes.
It would ultimately be our vote. So
Yes.
even though we'd be listening and hearing from, how many people come to our budget hearing? I'm guessing it's gonna be something around that, right? But maybe not, maybe there's gonna be more engagement, but still, it's going to rest of the people who have been doing this work and have been following this closely, so, but I hear you. David?
So I think the only thing that would really make sense if we were going to seriously consider this would be opening up at the high school level. So, just from basically 9 to 12. And that also might address some of the maybe concern about special education costs, because I know that the special education costs vary widely from where you are in, basically in your education. And I believe that sort of at the high school level, they are much less than typically at the elementary level. But more broadly, in the end, it's a question of, is this a net benefit to Wilmington? Because that's, communities participate in school choice because they see some benefit to themselves and their communities and their schools. And so that's the way that we would, want to think about that. And there's obviously going to be some cost to implementing a program like this, even if it's just on the programmatic side. Like if we participate in school choice, well, now we have to create a way for that to actually happen. And so there needs to be, procedures set in place and a way for people to apply and a way for us to do hold the lottery and so forth. And all of that takes, bandwidth that could be, used potentially on other things. So I think I'm still ultimately a little bit skeptical necessarily that this is in our best interest, but I think that that's really the question to ask. Would we consider it at the high school level, and would there be a benefit to Wilmington by doing that?
Mrs. Burns?
Could I ask a question? I recall that the tuition for school choice has been in the $5,000 area. And I know there's a lot of advocacy in the legislation with regards to the cost per student, per pupil, and that in making those gains over the past decade. Now, I don't know if is it 5,000 per student?
For a general ed.
Right,
Yeah.
so, but my question though, too, in considering everything, not to take it separately, but in considering this, is that, to me, I'm just trying to think, would that only heighten the cost that we would have to put through, or, I mean, is that enough to cover the cost of a student and its education and supporting a child? I'm just saying with today's costs, I guess, trying to clarify. Paul, what are your thoughts? Because that hasn't changed since I got on back in 2012. So I think that's what that's where I'm really kind of gray on.
I've been here since '08 and never entertained school choice due to the spacing. As far as the tuition piece, to be honest with you, I'm not sure how that whole thing works.
Okay. I was just curious in that realm, if that covers, the per pupil spending that we.
No, I mean, our per pupil is about 19,000 a student.
Right.
That's FY '20, that's the last numbers that DESI's put out there. So,
Okay.
There's a maximum of 5,000.
Right.
Regardless, it's 75% of your per pupil, but a maximum of 5,000.
Okay. All right. I'm just curious. Thank you.
I would like to move us in a direction here, so what am I thinking? I mean, I don't know how we don't do a public hearing. I don't know how we don't do that. Dr. Brand, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I do think that would make sense. I mean, and I admit this is one of those things that as I acknowledged earlier, this was an opportunity for myself as well to become informed on this, so I do think in the interpretation of this, we should at least do that and create that structure or that opportunity for the community.
It's unfortunate that there's not more guidance. I'm wondering actually, should we reach out to MASC and ask them for guidance on something it does seem like we're sitting here going, oh, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. I mean, I feel like this should be.
Well, but Burlington.
Burlington, which is of our immediately surrounding districts, is the only one that does school choice, and they do it only at the high school level.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I certainly can reach out to the superintendent, Mr. Conti there, to gather more specifics.
All right, so why don't we start there, and then we'll discuss at the agenda.
Sure.
For either the next one or two,
Right.
see where that falls, and then we can, I would imagine, set it up just like our budget hearing, and go into the agenda just like that. So does that sound like a good direction to move in? Okay, great.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you.
moving on. I said my timestamps are not, but I'm doing my best to keep us on track here. All right, so our last item under new business is the Finance Committee school budget revision and our response to that. So I know that it's been a pretty difficult week for all of us, sitting around this table and really sort of wanting to say more, wanting to respond on social media. I know it's been very, very difficult, so this is our opportunity. We have drafted a letter, and we're trying to get something out a bit sooner in response, but as we got closer to our meeting, I really wanted us to do this together, because if it's coming just from Glenn and from me, obviously I'm representing you, but if we have an opportunity to really revise this and look at it together, then I think that's really beneficial for how we respond to the $500,000 decrease in our budget that was announced last week. We still have not heard directly from the Finance Committee, but my intention is to go through this response tonight with you. We'll hopefully finalize it, put it on, or is it on letterhead already? Put it on letterhead. I'm looking at two versions of it. And then, to be respectful, I'll send it to the chair of the Finance Committee just prior to it going out to the community, but clearly our community members, our families are waiting to hear our thoughts on this. And so publicly, I just want to say, we follow the rules and we do this together, and so it is very difficult to respond to things like that when they occur and then we don't have our next meeting. So, but I appreciate your patience, and here we go. So that's how I will preface it. So you have a copy of this draft, although it looks pretty finalized, but there's definitely room here. Initially, and there were all kinds of people behind this work, but I think yesterday, Christine Elliott and I just got on the phone and said, all right, how do we make this a bit more straightforward? It was, how many pages, Mrs. Elliott, when we looked at it?
Multiple to start. We've narrowed it down to a little more than one.
Maybe five, 4.5, and so we said, oh goodness, we all know that when letters go out to the community, we want to say what's most important in the very beginning, because our, we're not all going to read every single detail, and so we wanted to make sure, like I was thinking, I want to make sure whatever we do, it's right up front. And so that was the intention here. Initially, the planning for student retention was a part of this letter. We've decided to maybe put it as an attachment. As you see, it's a hyperlink, so these are things that we probably want to discuss together to make sure that this really accurately represents how we're feeling about this cut and what we need to do to sort of mobilize the public to come together on April 30th to vote in favor of our original budget. So I will stop there and see what people's reactions are to this draft. Mrs. Plowman.
I really appreciated the link for the planning for student retention. And I want to speak to that a little bit because I think unfortunately the community has been given misinformation. That is very concerning to me because I think that, and I think this document, this attached document will really highlight that for people. That Dr. Brand and the staff in the public schools and this committee has actually worked pretty tirelessly on lots of things. And I just want to point out that when I think about the work that's happening to preserve enrollment, and I don't just think about the sort of direct linear things that are clearly outlined in that. There's a lot that's not included in that attachment. And I think about things like our application to MSBA, our commitment to making schools better and safe for children here. I think about the great work that's happened around our dyslexia screeners and our commitment to RTI and data-driven interventions. Like, this town is moving in a really important progressive direction that people are overlooking. And those are the kinds of things that are aimed at not just making education better for children, but should also be helping parents to think about the school system here as being evidence-based and data-driven, and these are important things in education. So I appreciated that list, but I also just want to highlight for the community who might watch this meeting is that there is even so much more than what that attachment really speaks to.
I'm going to completely agree. I have a list of my own that I just threw together in a chart of things that just came to mind right away of how we've been working so hard and how the central office team and the teachers have been working so hard to maintain. And MSBA is on there, all of the searches we've done, obviously the surveys. I even put the creation of the pause group as being one other way to really strengthen our parent and family engagement, and in ways that could affect enrollment. If parents were more in tune with what to expect moving up, would they feel more likely to want to come to Wilmington? So I think that you're absolutely right there. So how do you even quantify all that we've been doing and all that's been done behind the scenes to truly address the issue of enrollment? Sorry, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I think, and I appreciate those comments, both of them. I think that the situation is very, very difficult, and it's complicated. I want to start by saying that I fully understand and acknowledge the Finance Committee's right and responsibility to sort of scrutinize our budget. At their meeting, one of the members was saying that they don't represent the teachers, the students, and the families. They represent the taxpayers. And I agree with that. And they have a very difficult job. I think that it's a lot of work and a lot of diligence on their behalf working for the taxpayers of Wilmington, you know? But for our committee, we do represent the students, teachers and families of Wilmington. And in doing so, I think I want to be, I think that there are two separate issues that we're dealing with here. One is an overall declining enrollment in Wilmington in general. And then there's a separate issue, which is the sort of 8th grade attrition rate. So 8th graders leaving Wilmington to go to, you know, wherever else. And I think that those two issues, when I was watching when I was watching their meeting, they did talk about not sort of muddying the waters, but I think that they were sort of conflating the two issues. And because when you look at the 8th grade attrition rates in Wilmington, they've actually, over the past 5 years, they've actually been pretty steady. They've been hovering around between 30 and 35, 36%, which is not great to begin with, right? But it's actually pretty much on par with both Billerica and Tewksbury. The implication that I heard at their meeting was that we're losing, so our attrition rate this year was 52%, which is way high. That's alarming. But sort of the implication that I took away from watching that meeting was that this has been happening for the past 4 years, that we've been losing, that kids are fleeing the district at this 52% rate, and we've been doing absolutely nothing about it, or Dr. Brand has been doing nothing about it. And I don't think that's true. I think we have to be, I think the Finance Committee is concerned about this overall loss of, this overall reduction in enrollment. And that is something that we need to be thinking about and planning about. But I think when they make the suggestion that let's reduce, you know, let's amend their budget to reduce it by $500,000, which is the same amount that they had to increase the tech's budget. Those two, that's where I see the sort of conflation of these two things. We have this overall declining enrollment, and then we have this 8th grade attrition problem, which actually is not as big of an issue, except with the exception of this year, if that makes sense. So it's really this year where it's really gone up by, you know, what I would say like an extreme amount, and it's definitely concerning. But it's not like that's been happening for 4 years and we've done nothing about it. And I think the community needs to understand that. I think when we look at these two problems, like the overall declining enrollment over the past 5 years, and then, you know, the average attrition, the 8th grade attrition rate is higher, you know, this year. I think that when you're when you're thinking about these, like, you know, these two different issues, it's so easy to combine them and to think of it as one thing. When you look at kindergarten enrollment in Wilmington over the past 5 years, it's gone down 22%. So are we losing kids from 8th grade to 9th grade? Yes. But people are not even enrolling their kids in kindergarten to begin with, which is a separate issue, which is gonna, you know, bleed, you know, sort of, you know, all the way through. And that's an issue. But when you sort of tie this amended reduction based just on the assumption that all the kids are going to the tech and they're not choosing Wilmington High School, when that's actually, there are more students choosing the tech, you know, this year. But when you look over the past years, you know, even if the rate of kids going to the tech has increased, the number of students leaving the district has still stayed relatively steady, except for this year. So I don't know if you can say that we've had this issue for 4 years that we've done nothing about, when in fact it's only really an issue this year, you know? And, you know, when I look at the reports from DESE, the report, you know, saying our 52% eighth grade attrition rate was published on March 3rd, which was even after our, you know, after we unanimously approved that budget. So I think that, and I apologize for being long-winded here, but, you know, there's a declining enrollment in Wilmington, but I think even that is being dealt with. I think during their budget hearing with the Finance Committee, I think Dr. Brand did an excellent job of sort of talking about this counterintuitive situation where we have, you know, a declining enrollment, but the budget's not, you know, if we have a declining enrollment, doesn't that mean the budget should be going down as well? Well, no, because our special education costs are increasing. You know, it's not like declining enrollment overall means a lower budget, because not every student costs the same amount to educate. So if a student is, you know, a special education student is much more expensive than a general education student. So, you know, when you're sort of looking at these things, you get into this counterintuitive situation. Is why is the budget going up? Well, the budget's going up because we're servicing a more costly, you know, a more costly student. So it's just sort of like, so we have this declining enrollment, which is real, but I think when you really look at it and you understand the counterintuitive nature of it, it starts to make some more sense. We have a bad, you know, it's not a very good eighth grade attrition rates. We were, you know, 5th in the state for attrition this year, but over the past years, we've been 20th and 93rd, you know, it's not been as pronounced as this year. You know, and I guess the other thing that I want to say as well is the tech is not necessarily the issue. I think it's the issue this year, but it's not necessarily the issue. And I don't want anybody to come away from this thinking that anything less about the tech or about Wilmington High School. And that, you know, the tech is a fantastic school. It's an important option that we have for students here. And I don't want to feel like we're in competition with the tech, because they're both equally good options for Wilmington High School. So I think we need to be clear about what we're talking about. And I know I probably haven't been as clear as I should be, or could be about this, because again, this is such a complicated issue with many moving pieces that are counterintuitive.
So I'm going to put it in, you're absolutely right, but there's so many variables that do go into enrollment. And that eighth grade to ninth grade bridge has always been the factor. It's always been the factor since I've been on. And granted, you know, when I talk about variables, I talk about people moving in, people moving out, talking about pandemic in public education. I mean, that's a real factor, and it's real in Wilmington. Yes, some districts have bounced back, some haven't. And that's, you can read it, you know, that's what's throughout the news. I think, and I do think, yeah, enrollment is a huge piece, and I think Dr. Brand hasn't, you know, he started this middle school program review, and then the high school piece prior to the pandemic. We just got stalled because of, you know, kids come first and their education comes first, and did the best we can with a situation that none of us have ever been in before. But I think what strikes me, and I speak solely from myself, is that the conversation that was a little uncomfortable for me, and it was my view of it, almost seemed that we are being punished for something that truly isn't in our control, and yet we're trying to focus and work on. You know, when I hear a FinCom committee member say that, well, we should, you know, why are you adding athletic programs on, you know, we can't fund a JV bus. You should think about taking away an athletic program to do a JV bus. That's not what we're That's not the priority here. The priority here is giving our students those options to do things, to excel. And I don't know, and because I don't want to think it's a nefarious thing, but when there's no discussion about putting in $250,000 in repaving the middle school teachers' parking lot, and yet it's sort of like enrollment's down, let's take $500,000. That's a lot considering the budget that we presented, that Dr. Brand presented, is a bare bones budget, operations. Never mind taking in the cost of inflation that we are seeing throughout this country and the cost of those operations and our staff. 80% of our operating budget goes to salary, and then the programming we're doing, and thankfully for the diligence with the staff in our district to find these grants, to host these grants, to continually, because of the vital importance, especially in the social emotional piece. And then just to simply say, well, let them get their funding through the state, that to me is a bigger concern from a FinCom committee that's always supported their schools, because we're the biggest municipality department, and not for nothing, we support the students, but we also have overruled budget for the taxpayers. And when this budget, I'm going into my 11th year. Not once in the 11 years I've sat on this board have we been in the red, we've been in the black. Not by much, but we've been in the black, and that to me speaks volumes on wise fiscal spending. And, and forgive me, I know, I'm still a little razzed, but it's, we've always had and enjoyed, but I truly don't think, and this is really the first time that I really think that the understanding of how these monies are spent and where it's going and what our roles are and what the roles of our administration is, to see the track team succeed, the robotics team succeed, our debate team, our DECA team. Those are the merits that they're funding, that the taxpayers expect from us. Not a $250,000 repavement of the teachers' parking lot, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? I understand we do have to be fiscally mindful, especially in these times. But to say that, to base this decision of $500,000 on, well, something, we've been talking about it for years. Yeah, something, I've been a part of every hearing, and you're right, it has come up, especially in the past years, but it always has been, and we continue to work towards it and find a plan. And that's where I think I'm upset, because I don't understand where their rationale for and I watched their discussion, I don't understand where that rationale comes from. Where does that come up from fruition? And I have to commend the one FinCom member to stand their ground, because it's not easy to be the only person that doesn't go in, but I do have to commend, and I thank you, but I will be here fighting for our students and for our staff and for the taxpayers to ensure what we're giving to their children is exactly what they expect and what they deserve. So not to be on my tongue, but I'll let you go. But thank you for letting me share my thoughts.
Applaud or something.
Sorry?
Very passionate. I feel like we should applaud. No, I mean, I hear you, and I won't even say how I felt after watching that. I think it took us all just a few days to even kind of be able to return to any sort of normalcy. But well, I'll talk more about sort of my vision for collaborating. I mean, there was this piece of we've been asking, but I started looking through my email. I'm like, how did I miss some? Like, I knew this obviously from the budget hearing, which I wasn't able to attend because I was teaching, but obviously I spoke to many of you and then watched it, and so I was able to understand, what had happened there. And I knew that there was an issue at that point. And yes, we've been discussing this, but I have not had to. No one's asked me to supply anything. No one has said to me, can we meet and talk through this? I mean, so it kind of came as like, I understand that this has been an important issue, and we've been doing so much. Like, yes, like we've been thinking about this, we've been trying. We understand that really addressing this sort of decline is not a simple fix, that it has to go really within deep and heal from within. So you have to really repair deeply, not just say, well, we'll just do this and that will fix it. I mean, this takes, to truly see a turnaround like this, it's going to take a long time to figure out, one, what is the issue, and two, and at the same time, while we're trying to determine what the issue is, we've been strengthening all of those other pieces that all of you have mentioned. I mean, we've been getting better with our data. I mean, everything has improved so much in the past, I would say, 4 to 6 years. And I'm just like, I can't believe that I see so much growth. And I know we could even use more. And yet at the same time, we're sitting here being told we don't need it. You don't need that money. It was just, I've never actually had anyone say the public school district doesn't need that money. It just seemed very, very eye-opening to me. Sorry, David, I know you're getting all your notes together. I can see it, so I'm gonna pass it on.
I want to start with something that, about sort of this relative ranking of Wilmington, because I think that you can be concerned about the state of Wilmington's enrollment without making inappropriate comparisons. And comparing Wilmington about where we fall for our general retention or attrition rates to the whole state overlooks the fact that most towns in Massachusetts do not belong to a regional school district to which their kids can go without charge. That if they, for the majority of school districts, there is only the one high school option, or, another option, obviously some districts have more than one high school, but there is only the option in their own district. Unless they go private, that basically if you're not going to go to high school in your own district, you're going to go private. And Wilmington has made a different decision to the benefit of our students. We've had the opportunity that we belong to a regional school district so that our students have these two options of two great high schools to go to after 8th grade. And so therefore to almost then penalize Wilmington for giving these students that option, which is obviously going to decrease the retention or increase the attrition rates to Wilmington High School from 8th grade, and somehow then compare us to the entire state, I think is completely unfair. And we do have a higher rate than the other districts that belong to the Shawshing Tech District. And as I said, you can certainly be concerned about some of our enrollment trends, which we've discussed seemingly, endlessly, without making, I think, that inappropriate and unfair comparison. In the end, I think that this budget cut this recommended reduction is counterproductive and short-sighted. That it ignores that we are still just emerging from 2 years of pandemic in which we have seen, learning loss, academic regression. We have seen, mental health challenges through students, and we have put resources into those things because we've recognized that these are the needs that our students have, and we need to be able to fund the resources in order to, administer to what they need. And that cutting the budget at this point, just as we are, again, trying to recover, we're not even obviously back where we wanted to be. We are still sort of pulling out and trying to get ourselves, back to an even keel, that this is an extremely destructive and counterproductive thing to do at this time. Addressing also going directly to the high school, because that's of course where we've experienced the most enrollment. We can't, with this budget cut, most of our budget is staff. All right, so 80% of the Wilmington Public Schools budget is staff. That's how education works. It's a people business. And so you just take away a chunk of money and, there's only so many places you can go. Like, we can't not heat the buildings, all right? There's only so much that we can pull away from the non-staff related budget areas. So that means cutting positions. Well, we can't do it at the elementary levels because we have the staffing levels that we generally need, plus we have contractual commitments at those levels. So it really looks at, all right, well, the high school, well, okay, that's where the enrollment has gone down. Should we just cut staff at the high school? And doing that means at a high school, again, it's different in the secondary level than at the elementary level, because that means cutting courses. In order for Wilmington High School to offer a broad range of courses, we need the staff to actually teach those classes. And so if you cut staff, you are cutting classes. You're cutting courses that are no longer available for students to take. And that means that you are both harming the students who are currently enrolled and also making the high school less attractive to future students, which is certainly not going to help the enrollment problem if the high school becomes worse by offering a less comprehensive education. So I think that, that this is as I said, a short-sighted and counterproductive move, and not one that we should make.
I would just quickly add that almost everything I had written down is what David said.
That often happens.
As
Just-
eloquently?
It's very often that David is more eloquent than I am, and so I generally tend to let him go, but I agree.
I just have to say, because I've advocated for many years to the State House about school finances. And a lot of things that haven't come up lately is that we're still under a lot of unfunded and underfunded mandates, such as the circuit breaker, which can go anywhere, where we only get reimbursed 75% of all of our out-of-district tuition costs. There's other special education-related services, teacher evaluations, education, there's all of those that we are no longer at the front of our, at the top of our agenda items anymore, are still there, and that we're still paying for them because we need to, and it's a mandate with DESE and the federal government, Those are all built-in operational costs that only add to the inflation and the economy piece of operating a district. I just say that only because it'll preface our next agenda item, but I just wanted to keep that on the front burner, that there's a lot of things that we pick up that are underfunded or unfunded that only grow. So, thank you.
Melissa?
I just want to remind the community, obviously, enrollment is a top priority for us, and, has been, will continue to be. But I just want to emphasize and remind the community some of the data and the statistics that we have gleaned from our children and youth themselves. I really want to just state a couple of these data points that, I think that sadly, when people are not in the field of education or in the field of child and adolescent psychology, we can kind of lose touch with what's really going on inside the buildings and in the walls of a school. And I just want to remind people of what Alice Brown-LeGrand had reported to us back in December, that typically, so in 2020, the 2020-21 school year, by December, or by the end of the school year, I believe, they had received 391 requests for special education evaluations. And for this school year, the projected estimate was 500 to 600 evaluations. So when we think about, like Jay was saying, this isn't a one-to-one situation. It's so impossible to look at, enrollment, decreased enrollment, decreased budget. I wish it was that simplistic. It is not. We're talking about little human beings, and we're talking about what they've endured in the last couple of years. So I just want to remind people that our middle school students, for the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, in 2019 responded that 11.7% responded that they had seriously thought about attempting suicide. This past year, that number increased 4% to 15.2%. 15%, okay? Just wrap our heads around that. Had contemplated suicide, and 10.5% of them reported that they had made a plan, and 2% had actually attempted. So people just need to sort of sit with that and understand this is how children are feeling right now. This is what they're entering school buildings carrying and experiencing. In the Middlesex League, just to kind of give a broader kind of lens of this, 90% of students at the high school level report reported that they were feeling like they were under overwhelming stress levels. 87.5% of Wilmington high school students reported that. So we have to be thinking about social emotional aspects of our children and our youth, and that has to be factored into an operational budget when we're thinking about how we're servicing and supporting the kids of this town. So we can't be as simplistically and linear minded that these things just should equate with each other. So, and then it's just, it's staggering. And like I have data point after data point, but you get the point. But I wanted to just remind people that what our own children here in this town, our middle school kids and our high school kids, this is what they're telling us. They're telling us that they need more. So I just feel strongly that cutting our budget by that amount, which a few people in that finance committee meeting said, well, it's just 500,000. They won't really experience it. One makes me say, well, then why? And two is just an oversight of actually what happens in schools, what it takes to actually educate children properly. So, I would just state to the community that this is not the time to cut a budget that was actually within the boundaries of what we were even given by the town manager.
Jesse?
Well, and sort of following up on that, I think it's important for folks in the community also to remember that, while, yes, our enrollment numbers have struggled, and we're all, especially in this room, aware of that and working on that. And looking at the stretch of the last, say, 5 years, just as a school district, what we've sort of gone through and are still not coming out of completely. Having to hire a new superintendent after some turmoil and changeover in the district. Multiple principals at the middle school with no real consistency, and that's not to disparage Dr. Quirk in any way, but really, it not even through the first year of leadership there. And then a pandemic, like everything shuts down. So yes, things need to improve, but they also need to be given the time to improve, right? Where can't change things overnight like we've alluded to. So I appreciate the members of the finance committee and what they're doing. Like Jay said, they're stewards of our tax dollars, and I get that, but this money has real sort of impact at the end of it, and I think it feels like the wrong time to be making these moves. So.
All right, I'm going to bring us back to the letter.
Okay, the letter.
Letter. So we did try to incorporate as much as we could, again, with not doing a 3 or 4 page letter, right? I mean, I think it's trying to, but is there anything that you feel is missing?
I think anything missing would only lead it to that 4-page letter. I think it's condensed, I think it's it's direct, and I think it's clear, which I think is most important. That's and I support it.
I do want to make sure that it feels sort of strong enough and worrisome that people do feel sort of, okay, wait, this is also a call to action here at the end. We do say, we urge Wilmington residents to join us on April 30th at the annual town meeting held at Wilmington High School at 9 a.m. to vote in favor of the school committee's 2022-23 FY23 budget. And so as far as, I think thinking through this process in a more collaborative way moving forward, I don't think, not at this meeting do we need to talk about that, but I do think we probably want to come back as a committee and think through how do we make sure we're telling our story better to people who have to approve our budget? I mean, like, are we telling the story well, and MJ doesn't like that, are we telling the story well enough that we don't find ourselves in this situation where we're sitting there watching this, and I'm sure, I mean, we didn't obviously watch it together, but I can imagine, you know, the feelings of, wow, like, oh my goodness, how did this happen? How did we miss that? How, is that what they think? Oh my goodness. I mean, and then to want to almost shield Dr. Brand from that. I don't know if others felt that way, but I very much felt like, goodness, like this, we've been through so much, and those of us who were intimately involved or have children in the district have seen growth in many, many ways, and there are still many things that need to be done, but how did we get to this point where there clearly is such a disconnect between what we're doing here, what's happening in our community, and then what's happening around that table? And I felt like we gotta do something differently. So I don't think that's for right now, but I would say to start thinking through, how do we go into this, which will be here before we know it, as Paul always reminds us. All of a sudden, we're looking at how do we go into this in a little bit of a different way so that we don't find ourselves in this situation next year? And I also want to add that, you know, as I'm thinking, my goodness, like, you know, really, if anything, maybe one mention of the pandemic in that conversation. And those of us who have been really watching the work that's been done in these buildings during COVID, and I think at one point we might have been the only public buildings in town that were open, other than obviously fire and police. To make no mention of what we were able to accomplish during that time was just pretty eye-opening to me, that I thought, wow, like here we were, nothing was open, and when our kids were in school, and that just took a huge amount of time and work and energy on the part of everyone who works in our district to make that happen. We forget because we're in a new place now, but we had cafeteria work, we had distributing lunches each day, I'm not looking for other organizations or committees but to commend the people who have been doing that work in our district all this time to try and our very best to keep kids where they need to be, to hire those family engagement coordinators. The list goes on and on. So I want to make sure that we don't feel this way a year from now. MJ?
Sorry, and I appreciate your comments. I sat through, as you all did, that budget hearing, and Dr. Brand and Paul were very clear and transparent in the questions that they answered to. Questions that we have, over the past several months, if not longer, addressed in our meeting publicly. And of questions that have been asked by the FinCom committee to Paul. And Paul graciously, and, of course, responded with every single question. And yet, honest and transparent, and I've sat through a lot of these, in my opinion, the most community members. And I commend Dr. Brand because I thought he and Paul did a spectacular job in answering that question, yet they didn't want to hear the responses and the answers. And they kept focusing on that one note, and what they presented was a copy and paste off a DESE website that wasn't really, it was more misleading than it was accurate, let's put it that way.
Well, that concerns me, and that's what I mean when I say there's misinformation. I mean, maybe not misinformation, but there's information that's being given that's not lacking information.
Well, but it's a piecemeal situation that's easily misleading, not to say there aren't elements about that. And that's where my concern is. I think that is where my concern is, that and it was a very good hearing, and they asked very good questions. But but I didn't get the impression that they were actually listening to what Dr. Brand and Paul were saying, because it came circled back, and it's like, okay, and again, there's a lot more that goes into our schools than enrollment, as vital as it is, and we've recognized that we didn't need this budget hearing to bring it to our attention. We've been working on it. But there is so much more that goes into this piece that they didn't touch upon, similar to the pandemic, similar to the national trends. But, you know, so I just, not to carry this on, but that's what kind of, I think, disturbed me. Fully open to collaboration and finding out what the angle is, but not by the rationale, as I said, that they offered for this cut, which I think, considering it's a bare bones budget to begin with, that is $500,000 is significant. So, forgive me.
David, and then Joe.
Something I want to add is that Dr. Brand and his team and the entire leadership team, including all of the building principals, spent months working on this budget and in good faith working with Town Hall and working with the town manager and ensuring that what we needed in order to, you know, educate our students and run this district was something that the town could support. And there was back and forth on that, and there was a request for a reduction in some areas, which was made, all part of this collaborative process with Town Hall. And I mean, it would be one thing if, you know, if the money literally wasn't there, then that's one thing. You can't get blood from a stone. But what seems to be coming out of this is that it's not that Wilmington can't financially support this budget.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
It instead feels like it's trying to be, I don't know, some kind of slap. It feels punitive. That the Finance Committee was not happy with some things that we did or did not do, and that therefore this is, you know, a punitive, basically a punitive reaction to that, rather than one saying that the town can't support this. And I kind of just think that that's a little bit just unjustifiable, because you know, the town has the resources, which we only know because, again, there was this months-long collaborative process between the school department and the town to support the school budget. And, I mean, if it would be one thing if it just couldn't be done. But that doesn't seem to be the case here. And
This impacts our students directly and just our
and it's like,
bottom
I
line.
mean, the people, I understand, and the Finance Committee has a job to do. And it is their job to look at the budget and represent the taxpayers. And yeah, the taxpayers, you know, do want to know why the school budget keeps going up as enrollment goes down. But, you know, we need to explain it to them. And, you know, again, it's just like, what, do the teachers not get raises? Do costs not continue to go up? It's not as simple as, you know, oh, you just peg, you know, the amount of the budget to the number of students, and you just end up with a ratio that stays constant over time. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much along the lines of what David said. I think that somewhere in the letter, I think there needs to be something stated to the effect of, like, this is something the town manager has decided the town can support. It's not, you know, it's not a wild ask. It's something it's gone through this whole process.
I do think it's in there.
And it's like, well, here's this last minute, you know, amendment that is not really based on anything that I can really figure out other than the 8th graders this year.
Mm-hmm.
There was more 8th graders going to the 9th, going to the tech. That's the reason for the $500,000 deduction or reduction, and I don't see that as necessarily the problem. So I don't understand why they would do it, and so I think I'm going to stop there, but I'm just going to say that.
So there's actually,
yeah.
so we have right now, it says, so just from the top, last week, the Wilmington Finance Committee recommended a $500,000 reduction to the school department's operating budget for the next fiscal year. Right now, we have this recommendation was made after the district worked collaboratively, but thinking of adding, this recommendation was made and supported after the district worked collaboratively, or something along those lines. Does that seem to cover it a little bit?
Well, wait, the recommendation,
No.
that's their recommendation. It was supported. What are you trying to suggest?
Oh,
our
sorry.
budget?
This recommendation, I'm reading it as we on. This recommendation was made and supported after the district worked collaboratively with the town manager and his staff to deliver a budget that could be fiscally support. Okay, sorry, I'm confused.
Yeah.
So we're not at, sorry, you're reading? Some people are, if we're in and,
I'll take
okay,
it
got
out.
it. All right, no, sorry, just kidding, not a recommendation. Another one Melissa, do you want to read through?
What if you said this recommendation was made despite that the district worked collaboratively with the town manager? Because we just want the community to know that the budget was created within the parameters that were approved. So I don't know if.
Yeah, no, I am, okay. All right. We can play with that, so despite, yeah.
I would like to suggest that we not really try to wordsmith this in committee, and that if there are some strongly held opinions that something needs to be here, or needs to be taken out, or needs to be changed, that we share them, but that otherwise we not try to do small things.
I agree.
Yep.
All right, sounds good. So send any changes to me directly, and then I will make sure that they get put in prior to sending it.
So this letter is for the community. Is this going to be the same exact letter that is sent to the finance committee?
So that, we can talk about that. I was thinking that I would send this to the finance committee in advance of it going out to the community to give them a heads up. I thought that would be
Respectful,
Absolutely.
professional,
Yeah.
yes.
I think that's a good
I'm glad
idea,
you all
Jen.
agree with that move.
Courtesy that was
Courteous,
not
yeah.
extended to us.
I thought that would be the polite thing to do, and I wasn't gonna change anything. I might just add, I had some other drafts, so I might just, in the text, I might just add more of the specifics about the actual meeting that wouldn't be appropriate for the whole community.
I just want to convey to the finance committee that this is a group of, we are a group of people who aim to be collaborative and professional with one another. And I wouldn't expect anyone reaching out to me from finance committee. But to hear that you hadn't received any communication from anybody is just really concerning to me, that it was sort of portrayed to the community in a very different light. And I would just like to respectfully ask that they think about their practices and their sort of philosophy and their working in terms of collaboration with other town committees going forward.
All right, so this will go out, tomorrow. If all goes well and you don't send me too many words, this was a labor of love. So to everyone who participated in this, and to finally just sitting on the phone with Christine and, do we need that? But of course, we'd move things around and everything would sound weird and I'd be like, wait, that doesn't sound right. So, but we do appreciate, your feedback on that. All right, so you'll see that come to you tomorrow. It'll come to you prior to going out to the community, just like it always does, and then it'll go out to the community sometime tomorrow afternoon. Other reports, MJ.
Thank you. The MASC leadership meeting for board directors and division officers were held back on March 5th. The day comprised of a workshop where we all broke out to discuss SMARTY goals, which are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, inclusive, and equitable goal setting for boards, and how we approach work, which was a great exercise. And I do have to share something with the board. One of my favorite sayings that really resonated with me is that the presenter, Dr. Michael Dodge, spoke of equity. He said, equity doesn't mean we all have the same pair of shoes. It means we all have a pair of shoes that fit. And I thought that was quite a wonderful way of putting what equity truly is, and the best explanation. But anyway, division leaders got together to hear updates as to what's transpiring at the National School Board Association, what kind of work they've been doing at the federal legislative level, as well as speaking to conferences and the speakers for those conferences. We also, the division leaders also, the board members actually of the MASC, spoke of like the legislative priorities for 2022, which is before you. I thought it'd be easier to give it to you, so some reading material as to what's coming up. There's also some membership, couple of divisions reaching out for anyone interested in memberships. The National Hispanic Council is looking to add members. You don't have to be Hispanic to join, but it's about bringing in Hispanic and Latino education and culture within the schools, and advocating for the equality and equity in that realm. Also, it's the first time I've heard of this council, the North American Indian and Native Councils, which is a committee. It's a national committee. One of the committee member council here is based in Mashpee, which is a big Wampanoag population, and their district covers the Vineyard and the Cape. Both are looking to expand their membership. If anyone's interested, their names are in the information that I gave to you. But if you're interested in, I also wanted to share with you that we discussed about some of the updates at MASC. The website design is being enhanced and fixed so that it will be easier to navigate and easier to find information on the site. So that was discussed, as well as they talked about promoting participation on the many committees that they offer, such as the Nomination Committee, Legislative Committee, Special Education Committee, Resolution, Advisory Committee to Athletics, which is the MIAA Committee, and Advocacy Committee. So these committees are what create a lot of the resolutions that are brought forth at the delegation to determine what kind of advocacy in the next coming year they do at the state level as well as the federal level. They still go down once a year to DC to advocate for education and those resolutions that we vote for. So I wanted to just bring your attention to that. If you're interested in any of these committees, I haven't been able to participate because of they don't meet that often. They meet maybe quarterly, but they are looking for more participation from school committee members to participate for broader ideas and driving these very important committees forward. So basically that's in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thank you, MJ, for your involvement, but also for keeping us updated on all that is being done outside of, you get kind of in your own little bubble, and so it's always good to hear all the things that are happening across the state, so we thank you. Any other comments or questions for MJ? All right. Okay, correspondence?
None this evening.
We have some future dates. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes?
Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge, I don't know if everybody got these, but we got these wonderful,
yes.
handmade invitations for the Special Olympics on May 9th. And I thought that was such a great touch that the students took their time to make them and send them to us.
Lovely.
Beautiful,
I
too.
loved
Yeah.
mine.
That's fantastic.
I thought they did a great job, and hopefully we'll see a lot of people at the Special Olympics.
I agree. Thank you for bringing that. Melissa?
Just a quick
Sorry,
WEF update.
yes.
So the board met on March 15th. Obviously, they're very busy reviewing and approving grant applications and simultaneously engaging in fundraising. Some additional grants at Exploration Technology grants are going to be rolling out over the next couple of months, but I just wanted to a huge shout out to WEF for their ongoing generosity and all of their hard work and support of our teachers and students. But I did tell them I would bring to the attention of the committee and to the community an upcoming fundraiser, which may have already kicked off, so look for it on social media maybe. It's the Alumni Drive fundraiser, and so essentially this is an opportunity for former Wilmington Public School graduates to support Wilmington Public Schools in a fun and friendly little competition between graduating classes via a GoFundMe. The graduating class will obviously earn bragging rights, but also as a thank you, a miscellaneous grant will be named in honor of the graduating class with the greatest participation.
What a great idea.
Yeah. So, so spread the word. If you see it on social media, share it, please. And I certainly, I've asked for the link directly to put on my Facebook page, and so if you all see it, you can share it out as well. That was a cute idea.
Great.
It's really great.
Fabulous idea, actually.
Sorry, any other subcommittee reports? No, if it's not here, I just don't even, and then I see it here, and I'm like, oh, no. All right, okay. March 24th, so this starts tomorrow, is that right?
Yes.
March 24th through the 26th, we have the Wilmington Middle School Drama Club Spring Musical, Beauty and the Beast, at 7 p.m., but not 7 p.m. every night, right? It's 7 p.m.
It's 1 p.m. on.
1 p.m. on Saturday.
Saturday.
And then 1 p.m. on Saturday, so 7, 7, 1.
Yep.
Okay, excellent.
Saturday matinee.
So we
There's a
hope.
flyer on the district calendar.
Yes, and they've done a great job. I've seen it in a lot of different places, so I think it's been really well marketed and socialized. So I expect it will be, if it's not already sold out, I imagine it will be soon. So get your tickets if you haven't already. April 6th, we have a regular session meeting. That is a change from the 13th. So initially it was the 13th, and we did change it to the 6th. So I just want to make sure you change your calendars, because if you don't, you might miss it. That would be something I would do, I'm sure. And then we'll meet after April break, which is April 27th. And then April 30th is the annual town meeting at 9 a.m. here in the auditorium. And I don't think there's anything else to discuss. It is before 10 p.m., so I feel like that's a win, even though it's like an hour off my timestamps, Tracy, but that's okay.
Good discussion,
Dr. Brennan, are you good?
Good,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
I didn't offer you an opportunity to say anything, so I just wanted to make sure that you.
That's all right.
We sort of took over.
You did.
Yes, I apologize.
That's wonderful.
All right, so if there's nothing further, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Right.
Jen?